Hi you guys, this lesson is going to give you some extra practice on writing algebraic expressions, so make sure that you have this worksheet. I probably just handed it to you, and if I didn't, if you're at home, make sure that you print that out before you move any further in the video. So, number 1 says, Marina has 12 more than Brandon. Represent how much money Marina has. So for this one, we are writing an algebraic expression for how much money Marina has. Now, in order to do that, we're going to need to identify a variable to use. And in this case, we know that Marina has 12 more than Brandon. And we don't know how much either one of them has. But if we want to write an expression for how much money Marina has, we can let the amount of money that Brandon has be a variable. Okay, so we're going to pick a variable to stand in for the amount of money that Brandon has, and then using that variable, we can write an expression for how much money Marina has, because Marina has 12 more than Brandon. So if we take the amount of money that Brandon has and we add $12 to it, that is going to represent how much money Marina has. Okay, let's go ahead and look at number 3. Diane earned 23 less than Chris. Represent how much Diane earned. So, in order to represent how much Diane earned, we're going to need to pick a variable to use. The variable we are going to use is C, and you could pick another alphabet letter if you wanted, but we're going to let C be Chris's money. Okay, this is how much Chris earned. Now we can use that variable to represent how much Diane earned, because Diane earned 23 less than Chris. Now remember, less than, that's one of those tricky ones where you need to reverse the order. And so we would say that Diane earned $23 less than Chris. Okay, let's go ahead and look at number 5. Martin spent 2/3 of the money in his savings account on a new car. Represent the amount of money Martin spent on a new car. So in order to represent the amount of money Martin spent on a new car, we're going to have to use a variable to represent how much money is in his savings account. Okay, so we'll call M the money in Martin's savings account. And now we can use that variable that we just identified to represent the amount of money he spent on a new car, because he spent 2/3 of the money in his savings account on a new car. Now remember, the word of in math means multiplication. So we could say 2/3 times M. That's going to be the amount of money he spent on a new car, because he spent 2/3 of the money in his savings account, and we used M to represent the amount of money in his savings account. Okay, let's look at number 7. For 5 days, Lydia studied math for a certain amount of time and read for 15 minutes each day. Represent the total amount of time Lydia studied and read over the 5-day period. Okay, so on this one, we are going to use a variable. Let's just use the variable S, and that is going to stand for her studying math for a certain time, because we don't know how much time that is. We do know that she read for 15 minutes each day, and we want to write an expression that represents the total amount of time Lydia studied and read over the 5-day period. So now that we have identified a variable for the time she spends studying math, we can say the amount of time that she studies math and 15 minutes each day is the amount of time that she spends each day in total reading and studying math. And that happened over the space of 5 days. So this would be our expression. For 5 days, Lydia studied math for a certain amount of time and read for 15 minutes each day. So this right here in the parentheses, this is how much time she is studying and math and reading each day. And then because that happened over a 5-day period, we need to multiply that by 5. Okay, let's continue on the back side of this worksheet. We're going to continue to just work on the odds, and then I'm going to have you finish the evens on your own. So number 9 says, Nalini has $26 less than Hugo. Represent the amount of money Nalini has. So we are writing an expression for the amount of money that Nalini has. But in order to do that, we need to identify a variable to stand in for the amount of money that Hugo has. So if we say that H is the amount of money that Hugo has, then we can write an expression for the amount of money Nalini has because she has $26 less than Hugo. Okay. Now remember less than, this is one of those ones where you need to reverse the order. So we need to write down the amount of money that Hugo has first, and then Nalini has $26 less than that. Okay, let's keep going. Let's do 11 and 13 together, and then I will have you guys complete the evens. Number 11, Christina earned $420. She spent some of her earnings on her phone bill and spent $100 on new clothes. Represent the amount of money that Christina has now. Okay, so in order to represent the amount of money that she has now, we need to know that she started with $420. She spent some on her phone bill. This is the thing that we don't know, right? This is the thing that we don't know. This is some of her earnings on her phone bill. And we know that she spent $100 on new clothes. So let's identify our variable to stand in for how much she spent on her phone bill. Let's call that P. Okay, so this is the money spent on her phone bill. We know she earned $420, so she started out with $420, and then she spent some money on her phone bill, and then she spent some more money on new clothes. So represent the amount of money Christina now has. So we could write 420 minus P minus 100, or we could write 420 minus 100 minus P, recognizing that 420 minus 100 is 320. Okay, so this would be the amount of money that she has now. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and do one more with you, and then I will have you complete this on your own. So number 13, Heather spent 1/4 of the money in her savings account on a new cell phone. Represent the amount of money Heather spent on the new cell phone. Okay, so this is what we're doing. We're writing an expression for the amount of money Heather spent on the new cell phone. We know that she spent 1/4 of the money in her savings account on that new phone. What we don't know is how much money was in her savings account. So let's go ahead and choose the alphabet letter A. That's going to stand in for the amount of money in Heather's savings account. And now, if we know she spent 1/4 of that on her new cell phone, we can write our expression. 1/4 of the amount of money in her savings account. In math, the word of means multiplication. So 1/4 times A, that would be our expression. Okay, so now at this point, I want you to complete the even problems, and then when you are done with the evens, I want you to bring them back to me, and I will check them off with you and make sure that you know how to write expressions.